The Curious Case of Whisper Whillet, Jack of All Packs, Leader of One, by Bryan Mullins. Narrated by Bryan Mullins. Here are the chapters in chronological order. Chapter 1, Introduction. Chapter 2, Meet William Whisper Whillet the White Wolf. Chapter 3, Whisper meets Redmyer Riytz the Red Wolf. Chapter 4, Redmyer's dark past with her family. Chapter 5, Whisper's conspiracy theory about his family. Chapter 6, Delusions of Trivial Endeavour. Chapter 7, The Fake Suicide Attempt. Chapter 8, Families Part Ways with Whisper and Redmyer. Chapter 9, The Theater of the Lamb. Chapter 10, A Silent Night's Sleep, No Dreams. Chapter 11, Whisper Whillet's Life-Ending Discovery. Chapter 12, Whisper Whillet's Untimely Death. Chapter 13, Life Lessons Post-Death. And Chapter 14, Finale/Conclusion. Chapter 1, Introduction. We won't be able to justifiably start the story with a hitch without introducing to you, the audience, who Whisper Whillet really is. William Whisper Whillet was born in Salem, Massachusetts on January 11th, 1966, alone in the middle of the woods. It's not at all common to see a born-alone leader like this, but when you get rid of the illusion of being a true leader of the pack, you can really see where he's coming from. His pack of 16 wolves didn't even realize that he was born until we get to the Theater of the Lamb scene in Chapter 9. The whole wolf pack consisted of 16 wolves, and here are their names. Bulgy Whillet, Whisper's youngest brother. Prygart Whillet, Whisper's youngest sister. Moonhead Whillet, Whisper's oldest sister. Rippler Lee Whillet, Whisper's uncle. Ballardy Whillet, Whisper's mother. Olawa Anheed Whillet, Whisper's aunt. Brew Hadley Whillet, Whillet's father. Dicklet Whillet, Whillet's niece. Dolv Whillet, Whillet's nephew. Truth Whillet, Whillet's grandfather. Lily Whillet, spelled Lyely, is Whillet's grandmother. Tigler Whillet, spelled Tyggler, is Whillet's close cousin. Wendroll Whillet, spelled Wendroll, is Whillet's second-hand cousin. Yamalanaha Zumph Whillet is Whillet's spiritual brother, older than Bulgy. Queevy Doll Whillet, Whillet's sexually obsessed spiritual sister, older than Prygart. And Newman Whillet, spelled Nooman, is Whillet's oldest brother. For 18 years, William Whisper Whillet never really knew that his family even existed, let alone did the unthinkable to his pack. Now let's introduce Whisper's girlfriend, Redmyer Riytz. Redmyer was born as Redmyer Restingham Riytz in Chattanooga, Tennessee, on February 25, 1974, right in front of her mother, first brother, uncle, and aunt. Her birth took place right on a lonely highway that separates forest, campsite, and the other side of the forest. And let's introduce her 14-pack family. Dicking and Grunge Riytz are Redmyer's grandfather and grandmother. Rubely and Rubela Riytz are Redmyer's mother and father. Alihart Riytz is Redmyer's only sister. Roos Riytz is Redmyer's first brother. Cusum Cumberlinch Riytz is Redmyer's second brother. Marleesh Riytz is Redmyer's uncle. Wegeldly Riytz is Redmyer's aunt. Hamethy Riytz, spelled Hamethy, is Redmyer's niece. Home Riytz is Redmyer's nephew. Yulihar Riytz is Redmyer's spiritual brother. Gyuth Fogel Riytz is Redmyer's spiritual sister. And finally Goth Riytz, Redmyer's spiritual father. Both Whisper's and Redmyer's family won't be introduced until Chapter 9. When and where we begin in this story is on the day of May 30th, 1995, where Whisper and Redmyer first met and hooked up as boyfriend-girlfriend. Whisper was 29 and Redmyer was 21. They first hooked up at the Come Hither Inn, 4 blocks away from the Theater of the Lamb. Whisper and Redmyer have their first sex that very night. They checked out a few days later. Throughout these few days, the story begins. Chapter 2. Meet William Whisper Whillet, the White Wolf. We meet the main protagonist of the story on the same day that became the first that he and Redmyer stayed together and made love that night. He wakes up at 7 a.m., goes to his regular 9-to-5 job at a standalone bar known as the Theater of the Lamb, a bar that was built in 1962 and has never had any financial or infrastructural trouble ever since. As Whisper opens the door, and turns on the open light, he begins his day, serving breakfast-themed shots like Maple Cabin, Egg-tastic Blessed, and their most famous drink, Sausage Bossage, a beer with chunks of breakfast sausage, bacon, egg white, and a hint of white wine to top it all off. It's the one and only drink that is the centerpiece of the bar and theater known as the Theater of the Lamb. Not only did this wolf serve drinks to other party animals like foxes, raccoons, and coyotes, but to add on top of that, entire wolf packs come to the bar to either have a morning brew or an evening's grief, another phrase for fixins or dinner. The movies that, quote-unquote, the Theater of the Lamb shows on the regular are more popular B-movies starring anthropomorphic porn stars, mostly surrounding a plot that consists of reasons to add a porn scene in the middle of the dramatic climax of a tragedy. A villain getting his way, or, for example, highest in the middle of Low Bend City, an entire city of anthropomorphic foxes, wolves, and coyotes getting destroyed, all because they were all rendered permanently sterile over a massive chemical leak that made them all riot and burn their own city down. And during this whole scene, the two main characters were just fucking right in the middle. There was a movie that was filmed as a comedy special, a whimsical ferret that takes pot shots at other furry comedians with the stage name of Mostly Know How. Whisper is the only one that serves his own drinks, but eventually at any given day, Redmyer will kindly ask for one and he'll serve one or more to her at his command. His favorites are a few of the main drinks that are served 24/7. The first is black blood wine, which is red wine mixed with maple syrup, unused bacon grease, and molasses. The second one is blonde, spelt Blondeigh, which is white wine mixed with citrus juice, pineapple chunks, and moonshine. The third is Tiger Tits, which is a hot cup of Cabernet Sauvignon mixed with regular milk, bamboo shoots, orange juice, and ginger ale. And finally, last but not least, the fourth one is Nut Buster, which is a cocktail that consists of whipped cream, chocolate milk, eggnog whiskey, and peanut butter. Before Redmyer became his girlfriend, she was his 9-to-5 closest friend/love interest. Occasionally, Redmyer has the courage to break up fights that other animals start over trivial shit, like cheating on an animal of another species, or some other animal peeing and jizzing all over a few seats after furiously masturbating with a taser to their balls under the influence of too many Maple Cabin shots. Sometimes, Whisper gets caught breaking up a petty verbal fight over topics that he considers well beyond the length of his tail. Overall, May 30th, 1995 was the tamest day in Whisper's entire career as a bartender at the Theater of the Lamb. Chapter 3. Whisper meets Redmyer Riytz the Red Wolf. Even though, as I said before, that this wasn't the first time Whisper met Redmyer, this time will be different. At around 6:30 p.m. on the same day, Redmyer arrives to the bar distraught over not feeling 100% trusting of her own pack. She just got done crying as she entered the bar. Redmyer kindly asked Whisper for a cup of Tiger Tits. Whisper kindly accepts her request. Redmyer gets fired from her family-run job at a convenience store a few miles away from the Theater of the Lamb, all because she questioned the reason for her existence as a female red wolf, which wasn't nearly as much of an endangered species as today. Right as she stomped her way out of the store without her work clothes on in tears, she shits on the entrance rug as an act of retaliation. She walks to her mobile home right across from the store, puts on her new clothes, and drives off to the Theater of the Lamb bar. With an arrival, she cried in her car for 5 minutes while listening to the Beatles' 1967 song called A Day in the Life from their album Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Whisper Whillet, while serving himself up a piping hot cup of Tiger Tits, joins Redmyer in a heart-to-heart conversation. Whisper asks Redmyer why she was crying earlier before she entered the bar. she quietly said,
I think I must explain to you in a way where someone can't intervene or interfere.
Redmyer bravely talks about how her whole life was a lie from the time of her birth. Up to this point in the story, Redmyer goes off in a passionate rant right before she finished her piping hot cup of tiger tits about how she met Whisper Whillet for the same reason why he met her. Redmyer then told him that she got fired from her 9-to-5 job as a cashier at her family-run convenience store, a store ironically called Family Matters. Whisper Whillet was baffled at the new revelation, but continues the conversation about the reason why they're together at all. Sharing the same reasons, sharing the same goals, and sharing the interest in mind to destroy the fantasy of being the leader of the pack. A couple of hours later at around 8:30 p.m., they finished talking about those plans after everyone else has left or were picked up by somebody else to join or have fun at a party they frequently go to. Whisper and Redmyer close up the bar together for the night at 9 p.m. They arrive at the Come Hither Inn at around 9:15 p.m., checked in at 9:20 p.m., and fully got the ability to unwind and tidy up by 9:30 p.m. Around 11 p.m. on the night of May 30th, 1995, Whisper and Redmyer got into their beds, had furious yet enduring sex, and finally went to bed, putting their pajamas back on afterwards. Chapter 4. Redmyer's dark past with her family. On the morning of May 31st, 1995, Redmyer wakes up after having the first good dream she's had in her life. Whisper quietly wakes up right after Redmyer makes herself a cup of decaffeinated coffee. Redmyer doesn't need caffeine to make her go crazy about her family, but this crazy, in quotations, of hers is anything but. She doesn't really go off on a rant about her family this time, but more like an offhanded ramble. This ramble came right after her breakfast meal, which was a raw T-bone steak with a side of hard-boiled eggs. Redmyer then brushes her teeth after her big meal. Redmyer says to Whisper,
I was born in the middle of the highway, but you know what? A car should have hit them all on the way to the grassy side of the road.
Whisper said kindly,
Tell me all about it.
Redmyer kindly accepted Whisper's request by saying,
Okay, I will.
She gets all descriptive to Whisper about her family.
My family's a lie. My life's a lie. And that's the only reason I am with you. It's because your life's a lie too. And being the leader of the pack at birth is the biggest one of them all. Dicking and Grunge can't stop licking each other's genitalia and asses. Ripley and Rubula keeps on arguing about whether or not that they'll have another kid or when they do it at all. Which they can't because my mother's fallopian tubes are all tied up by the veterinarian nearby.
Whisper kindly interrupts with a few sentences.
Queevy can't even leave my old dick alone. I jizzed my dick off for years before I've even begun to get to know you. Dicklet is a smart-ass niece of mine that keeps trying to gaslight me into believing in being the leader of the pack. Dicklet even had the nerve to make fun of the fact that my dick is enormous, but still calls me Tiny Dick Wickler anyway. What is the point of being the leader if your dad was the leader all along?
Redmyer continues her truthful ramble about her family and how they're so shit.
My uncle and aunt can't stop fucking each other. All my siblings are illiterate, and my parents are both failures in life. Running a convenience store, in my opinion, is just a downright cope to hide themselves from the fact that they are all illiterate and socially inept failures. Unlike your pack, my pack is still alive, and had partial involvement in the complete murder and cover-up of the pre-Whillet pack. This pack, unlike the one you have now, used to only consist of 6 wolves. And here were their names. Belbo Trouthbow, which was mistaken for you, Whisper, Delyaya Trouthbow, Dellen Faith, Westford Faith, and Easter Faith. This pack existed between October 11th, 1958 and December 25th, 1962. The same year that the Theater of the Lamb opened 4 months prior. Their main drink item on their menu back then was called Brand New Pack. which literally consists of literal wolf blood mixed with red wine, honey, and barbecue sauce. They pulled it from their menu, shockingly, on January 11th, 1966, the day, Whisper, you were born. These two pairs of three wolves that shared the same blood and surname as one another were innocently walking and playing around with each other in this here neck of the woods before they were brutally slaughtered for so much as having the wrong last name.
Whisper loudly gasps, and as his mouth was still agape, after the massive truth bomb Redmyer just dropped, he gained a full-on erection in his pants, which made Redmyer take her clothes off. They had furious sex again for 25 minutes, but this time, they took a shower together after that. Redmyer and Whisper took turns washing each other's body parts and face. While Whisper was done with drying up after the shower, he just came up with this totally wacky conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory in which will come back later to bite him in the ass. Redmyer puts her new clothes on, while Whisper does the same but grabs himself a beer afterwards. Chapter 5. Whisper's conspiracy theory about his family. Here is how this theory went as Whisper described it, with crystal clarity. Right before he goes off on a passionate rant about his conspiracy theory, he opens his beer can and chugs it until the last drop. Redmyer pulled out her Chardonnay and drinks moderately, goes for each little sip at a time. Whisper Whillet then begins to ramble.
So here is how it goes. My father, mother, uncle, aunt, sisters, and brothers covered up and made fun of the fact that I was a leader of a pack before I was even born. They used to call me Belbo, as in Belbo Troutbo. I didn't even mind. It didn't even cross my mind. It just went right over my head all these years. While everybody is afraid of me calling myself by my real name, saying my real name out loud, and they were deathly afraid of me screaming my full name while furiously running naked and peeing on anybody that called me Belbo. Whenever I go out on these naked running sprees, I stop to take a breather. Most times I come right back inside the house. One of the times I did it, Dicklet was furiously sucking and choking on my huge cock, and I thought it was a water hose squirting out water the wrong way, because she seemed to drool a lot. I got her to notice by screaming her name, Dicklet! She stopped, cutely giggled, and said, oops, this was when she was still 17 at the time. This was like 5 years ago. She was a week away from turning 18 when she was dicking me off. They thought I was dead. They thought that my name wasn't William Whisper Whillet. And most importantly, they covered up the fact that Belbo Troutbo was among the 6 that died in a complete murder/cover-up before I was even born. This was why I was alone my entire life, until I met you, Redmyer. I'm sure it's not exactly the same situation as the one you were in when you were young, but it's sure as shit relatable, and this theory has to be true, because my fucking name is not goddamn Belbo. Grr.
He furiously throws his empty beer can into the trash can like a responsibly drunk individual. Redmyer keeping quiet and calmly laughing at Whisper's half-drunken rage. Redmyer applauds him and Whisper keeps going on with his rant.
This isn't even the whole theory. That's just the first half. I was thrown onto the solid asphalt of the highway by my parents and siblings numerous times when I was a kid, while they desperately hoped that God would just send a car to go down that highway and run me over, only for God to send me to heaven, only to throw me back down and send me to hell. They took the blood of the pack they said I was the leader of before I was born, mixed that with red wine, honey, and fucking goddamn barbecue sauce. We're not pigs. We're fucking wolves, God. Why did you fucking abandon me when you knew I wasn't there yet?
Whisper hysterically laughed his ass off over how stupid that question was. Redmyer joined him in his short-lived laughter. They went out on a date and dinner at a restaurant named Vixen's Fixins. They both ordered a fancy plate of filet mignon steaks with a side of bacon, mushrooms, and french fries. They didn't have to pay anything to the waitress, as she paid herself ahead of time, which was the same price amount as the very things they ordered for themselves. They came right back to the hotel room at the Come Hither Inn in room 232. This time, instead of having furious sex in their bed when it was time to go to sleep, they quietly giggled and cackled to one another. It got to the point where they were literally vibrating like a tickle-me toy that would cause a complete stir later that same year, in 1995. They stopped dicking around in their bed sheets and quietly went to sleep at around 11:30 p.m. They both woke up at 5 a.m. and started seeing and hearing things. Their spiritual siblings caught on to them, and it scared the daylights out of both of them. Chapter 6, Delusions of Trivial Endeavour. At around 5:10 a.m. on June 1st, 1995, Whisper and Redmyer started seeing their spiritual siblings, sneaking up on them, hearing about their private conversations in the hotel room the day before. Yamalanaha kindly asks Whisper,
"Why were you screaming about a menu item at a bar you work for?"
while his sexually obsessed sister, Kui, asked him,
How would this make you look like, working for a bar that contributed to the genocide of the pack you supposedly led before you were even born, let alone conceived?
Whisper kindly responds to Yamalanaha's question and then Kui's inquiry.
Because you know and I know that wolf's blood is what flows through my body and my veins, and that this violates my reason for existence. This would make me look like I'm cannibalizing my own pack that I led before I was even born, in the form of a drink or two. I can't live like this. I might kill myself with endless laughter.
Redmyer just bursts out laughing at Whisper for saying that he might kill himself with endless laughter. But then, Redmyer's spiritual siblings started asking her questions. Yulihar asks her this question.
Why and how did you even get to know Whisper's name, let alone who he truly was?
Then to add on top of Yulihar's inquiry, Giyuth threw a wet hairball at her, that is proverbially, of course.
What state is this hotel in? Holy shit!
Redmyer kindly answers Giyuth's short question with saying,
Michigan.
So this whole time, this entire phenomenon that Whisper theorized in his conspiracy theory happened in the state of Michigan. Giyuth was baffled by her answer and kindly responded with,
Oh, I just didn't know. Oh, how sweet. It's in the state of Michigan.
Then Redmyer answers Yulihar's question with,
He was a friend of mine when we were both in high school. He started working at the Theater of the Land back in 1989, and a day or two ago, we just became boyfriend-girlfriend.
Yulihar just said, okay, and left. Giyuth told them both,
I love you all, and nice to see that you have a slutty spiritual sister. Talk about hot stuff, Whisper.
and left. Whisper and Redmyer quickly went back to bed at 5:45 a.m. They woke up at 11:59 a.m. to the obsessive and furious knocking on their hotel room door. The knocking just suddenly stopped after Redmyer sneezed loudly, only for Whisper to go right back to sleep for another 2 hours. All the while, Redmyer went to go get something from her mobile home and came right back. Chapter 7, The Fake Suicide Attempt. Redmyer recalls a time where she faked trying to commit suicide. This was back when she was 17 years old herself. Redmyer fake cried for a few seconds. Whisper was feeling kind of awkward while being silent. So for the sake of the story, I will do the job of telling it like it is for poor old Redmyer, as I, the narrator, will describe every single painful detail to you, since Redmyer is still to this day too emotionally scarred to tell the tale herself, even though her entire family laughs their furry asses off every time she brings it up. On the night of June 2nd, 1995, they both started getting nostalgic about trauma in the weirdest way imaginable. As Redmyer recalls, on the evening of August 20th, 1991, she tried to overdose herself on pickle juice. She apparently gathered up and collected 7 unadulterated jars of pickles, ate all the pickles in one sitting, and tried to drink every single last drop of pickle juice from all those 7 jars, resulting in her having a violent vomiting fit that lasted only a couple of minutes. She didn't even vomit out blood. She vomited out pickle juice and chunks of undigested pickle. Right after she vomited, she began to burp and belch like a beast. She then got angry at herself that her silly-ass suicide attempt failed epically. After she did this, she tried this whole plan to blow up the entire convenience store she started working for after being groped in the ass by her own perverted uncle, Marleesh. She failed to do so because she partially lit up her own mobile home on fire for 30 seconds. Not enough time for it to fully burn anything down. To this day, there are still some unremovable charred black stains all over the ceiling of the living room. To top it all off, she threw a whole bag of flour and it somehow hit her aunt right on her ass. Her aunt fell on her ass, got right back up, kindly laughed, and said,
Oops, silly me.
Redmyer laughs at this traumatizing thought, so did Whisper, albeit laughing themselves red-faced at how retarded the attempt really was after all these years. They both fell to the floor in an effort to stop laughing at themselves. They stopped after 1 minute straight of vibrating all across the floor, near the end laughing while in the missionary sex position. After which, Whisper had to go to the bathroom for a quick masturbation session. Redmyer almost shat herself laughing just there, but right after Whisper's wank, Redmyer emptied out her bowel safely and cleanly. Whisper shared a similar experience about the time he prevented a suicide attempt that Dolph attempted, all because Dicklet decided to sodomize him with an uncooked, partially frozen chicken tender. A fucking goddamn uncooked, partially frozen chicken tender. That's just like wanting to quit your job all because you shat yourself on the first day of the job. Dicklet likes to fuck around with most of Whisper's family. This is, of course, not to trivialize or make suicide seem funny at all, because it's not. It's serious as all shit. Some suicide attempts aren't even suicide attempts at all. Another example of a fake suicide attempt is snorting a whole line of cocaine, running around your house until you get so dizzy that you just somehow dip headfirst into the lake that your house resides by and pretend to drown. Whisper and Redmyer goes to sleep at around 9:30 p.m., unusually early for their bedtime, but they did it anyway. They had some dreams, but their spiritual siblings never bothered them last night. They decided to go back to the forest where both of these families lived. In these fancy log cabins, Redmyer's and Whisper's families lived so close together, they were such closely tied neighbors in this regard. They then went to them to have a conversation that almost escalated to a full-blown physical fight on June 3rd, 1995. Chapter 8. Families part ways with Whisper and Redmyer. As they woke up to visit their families, they went to the Theater of the Lamb to get each other a piping hot cup of tiger tits. Later in the morning on June 3rd, 1995, Whisper starts the argument with his family by asking 10 questions to all of them collectively.
Number 1. Why did you call me Belbo as in Belbo Troutbo all these years? 2. Why do you let Dicklet start shit with other family members? Such as letting us sodomize my nephew with an uncooked, partially frozen chicken tender, or murdered the pack I was supposedly the leader of before I was born. 3. Why did you all not teach me how to fend for myself? 4. How could you do all this to me? 5. Why would you all even trust me to trust myself as I lost my trust in you wolves? 6. Who originally founded the Theater of the Lamb anyway? Number 7. What was the reason behind pulling the drink known as Brand New Pack off the menu? 8. Was my whole life really a lie, or am I the leader of my own pack now? 9. Will I be able to marry Redmyer and at least try to create a pack of my own? And 10. And finally, for the love of God, please tell me, why is my dick so enormous? Is it genetics, or does it have to do with lineage?
Before Whisper's family had any chance to respond, Redmyer did the same to her family, but only asked them 5 questions.
Number 1, why did you all let my uncle sexually harass me at the convenience store Family Matters? 2, why would you name your convenience store Family Matters anyway, in spite of the fact that almost nobody comes here to buy your shitty, off-brand, mediocre garbage items? 3, why did you treat my beloved White Wolf Whisper this way? Number 4, do you think I'm your most special daughter you've ever had anyway? And 5, how many new cubs do you think we can make without dying?
Both Whisper's and Redmyer's family had nothing to say at all. to answer for all those 15 questions, so they would have started fighting, but they all decided to calm their tits and relax as they peacefully go right back into their respective cabins. Whisper and Redmyer drive back to the hotel room, starting to get a little giggly at the response. Whisper says, while trying so hard not to fall on the floor laughing,
I can't believe that they couldn't even try to defend themselves.
Redmyer kindly responds with,
Tell me all about it. This is why you're so intelligent and why I'm just so damn dumb.
They go out to dinner, but to a different restaurant, the Theater of the Lamb, but this time with 30 unexpected particular guests. This upcoming chapter, I may warn you all, will be brutally hilarious, as much as it is brutally unsettling. Chapter 9, The Theater of the Lamb. On the evening of June 3rd, 1995, Whisper and Redmyer were unexpectedly greeted by their own families, where they all screamed, "Welcome to the Theater of the Lamb, Whisper and Redmyer." Redmyer kindly responded back with,
Howdy, y'all.
Whisper said,
Hi, guys and gals.
Then Whisper proceeded to take a piss, so did Redmyer. They all had dinner and a drink or two before Whisper and Redmyer arrived. They went from being pissed off to the point of almost physically fighting them to being completely civil, drunk, and a bit high. They got the main projectionist at the Theater of the Lamb to put on a long documentary titled The Pre-Whillet Pack. Hail Whisper Whillet. The movie goes on for about 10 minutes, with the obviously satirical commentary, the obvious footage of the genocide of the Pack Whisper supposedly led before he was born, and they didn't even begin to laugh. Some of them were even bored, but before they began to ask the projectionist to stop the film, the camera panned to Mostly Know-How, beginning to take pot shots at all of them, at the expense of both Whisper and Redmyer themselves. The entire comedy special was mostly tame by the time it's all over. I'm not gonna lie, Mostly Know-How had some banger one-liners. For example, here's 10.
Welcome to the Theater of the Lamb, where we serve up the equivalent of concrete mixed with fecal matter, Whisper's jizz and Redmyer's piss.
2.
Dicklet must be a real sweet name for an absolute bag of dicks. One that's particularly good at separating herself from the humongous one she's trying to suck off all the time.
3.
Redmyer has every reason and right to complain. That's why she's so madly in love with poor Whisper here.
4.
Don't get me wrong, I take a shot at everybody who dared to have more than one piping hot cup of tiger tits. You would think at this point that I'm Ricky Balboa, snorting cocaine from between Duke Nukem's ass cheeks.
5.
I wonder how you dig on them tiger tits. Do you choke on your own spit, or do you shove those bamboo shoots up your dick hole, having those titties smack you in the nose and hope to God that you don't sneeze?
6.
Where do you think you would take this bitch named Blonde to anyway? Into the woods for some straight up fucking?
7.
Nutbusters, the kind of drink that Santa Claus would drink countless times until he's at the point of shagging one of the 9 reindeer, just trying to get Christmas straightened out for him.
8.
The Theater of the Lamb is mostly known for that one incident where a hyena drank too many maple cabin shots, pissed and jizzed all over a few seats, whilst having a taser to his balls and screaming, "I love you, motherfucker," every time he tases himself with glee.
9.
If I was only that fucking hyena with the dick just as long as Whispers.
And finally, number 10.
Your parents are waiting for their parents to die so they can wank off to them on their dead corpses. Bloody hell, mate.
All of these one-liners had them laughing, but this was only the beginning. All of these 10 pot shots are part of his warm-up routine. What will be said next by Mostly Know-How, the British ferret, will have both Whispers and Redmyer's entire family dying from laughter. Literally. Here it is.
With a wolf like Whisper, who can we really believe to know to be the leader of the pack now?
Whisper and Redmyer was immediately startled by the ungodly loud outburst of laughter. Even Dicklet was caught up in their laughter. The shaking wasn't that much of an issue until 10 minutes later. Most of them were shaking so hard and loud, the building was shaking to its core. Redmyer's and Whisper's grandparents, uncles, and aunts have already died from excessive laughter. Their death was likely expedited due to their old age. Whisper and Redmyer were still both completely silent as this all plays out. For the next 10 minutes after their deaths, the laughter started dying down a bit. The younger wolf succumbed to laughter as well. This included all the cousins, nieces, nephews, brothers, and sisters from both Whisper's and Redmyer's family, especially the spiritual ones. Just because they're equivalent to living ghosts does not mean that they don't die like the living things that they were before. The electrical wiring, plumbing became a little damaged from the shaking. Pipes started leaking, wires started sparking, the projector goes out, while the projectionist doesn't even chuckle as this massive outburst of laughter began, runs and escapes from the bar to save his own life. The wheezing, cackling, and the desperate gasping for air scared the shit out of the projectionist that simply kept on yelling,
It's not that fucking funny.
Whisper and Redmyer went to the bathroom to take another piss and shit after drinking another 2 piping hot cups of Tiger Tits a few minutes prior. The building couldn't take the excessive vibrating and obnoxious shaking anymore, so the theater portion of the bar caved in on itself, opening the bar itself to the natural world of a thunderstorm. A severe one at that, with all the rain and hail that came tumbling after. Whisper and Redmyer rushed back from the bathroom after washing their hands. Whisper screams,
Holy fucking shit!
Redmyer just bursts out laughing at the damage that their obsessive and obnoxious vibrating caused. Redmyer then says,
I understand that reaction there, sweetheart.
For the next 10 minutes, after the past 20, the last of the 30 wolves died of laughter, the mothers and the fathers. Every single other wolf at this point already dropped down and died like a Tickle Me Elmo that just ran out of battery. And finally, at long last, all was quiet. The rest of the building started to crumble, including the very part of the building Whisper loved and admired the most. Right after Whisper and Redmyer escapes the Theater of the Lamb and drives all the way back to the hotel room, the entire building collapses, leaving water spraying up in the air from the plumbing. A fire was started because of the electricity and alcohol combined. Whisper, after returning to the hotel room, quietly waits for Redmyer to get out of the bathroom. Redmyer gets out of the bathroom just distraught. Whisper enters the bathroom just downright sobbing out loud. Redmyer joins in his sorrow by weeping while laying on their favorite bed. They stopped crying at the same time. After 15 minutes of doing so, they watched the news about what just happened at the now-to-be defunct and destroyed bar called the Theater of the Lamb. They all just said nothing for the rest of the night, ate nothing for dinner, and just went hungry while sleeping for the rest of the night. And that concludes Chapter 9. Chapter 10. A Silent Night's Sleep. No Dreams. On the night of June 3rd, all the way up to the morning of June 4th, 1995, Whisper and Redmyer slept silently. Whisper woke up at 7 a.m., crying after having no dreams. All the while, Redmyer didn't wake up until 8:30 a.m. Redmyer wasn't in the mood for sex anymore. Redmyer just found out that all the sperm that Whisper gave to Redmyer died in her vagina. Conception didn't even begin to her. She walks all the way to the bathroom, quietly shuts the door, and starts weeping slowly. Redmyer didn't even say a word until she had her breakfast. So did Whisper. Whisper didn't even realize the shocking news Redmyer tried her hardest to keep to herself. All of this was until Redmyer broke it to Whisper right in his face. Now that they're still together, but all alone when it comes to the family that they no longer have. Things start to get ugly when it comes to their relationship, but they didn't have any gigantic argument or anything big to do until Chapter 11. Both of them cheered up, said a bunch of funny jokes, and went to Vixen's Fixins again. But this time, they negotiate about their futures after both of their families died brutally of laughter. Redmyer orders a whole plate of barbecue shrimp with a side of asparagus and cauliflower. Whisper, on the other hand, orders himself a T-bone steak covered in blue cheese sauce with the sides of French fries and salmon. They finished their meal without even choking. They had to pay a sum of $12.30 in total for their meal this time, instead of having the waitress pay it for them, which was a hell of a bargain for them. And I'm not gonna lie, they returned to their hotel room, or room 232, at around 6 p.m. Redmyer takes a shower first, then Whisper. They actually take showers separately this time. She cleaned her vagina perfectly of Whisper's dead sperm. Whisper then goes to the doctor to get a diagnosis for a certain type of cancer that is currently affecting him, without him fully realizing it yet. Whisper turns on the TV, changes the channel to the news channel. Whisper and Redmyer, as she got out of the shower, found out that the Mostly Know-How show got cancelled and pulled from the network for causing the deaths of 30 wolves and the destruction of the entire bar known as the Theater of the Lamb. They also found out that Mostly Know-How and the projectionist killed themselves together, bringing a giant sigh of relief to and for both of them. Whisper and Redmyer have sex again the very same night. This time, Whisper gave her the largest and last load he'll ever give in his life, to try and reproduce more wolves to further his lie of a bloodline. Spoiler alert, it works this time. Conception begins, and Redmyer was found to be pregnant right before Whisper dies later on in Chapter 12. She was with another wolf named Ken McCall the Grey Wolf after the breakup. Chapter 11. Whisper Whillet's life-ending discovery. Whisper wakes up the next day on June 5th, 1995 at around 4 a.m. Whisper felt like his dick is falling off while Redmyer is sleeping right next to him laughing her ass off. Whisper goes to the doctor at around 9:30 a.m. for his appointment/diagnosis. His doctor told him that he has stage 4 penile cancer. That's right, there's a true reason why his dick was so enormous. He comes back to the hotel room to only find out Redmyer's still asleep at 10 a.m. Redmyer wakes up to Whisper telling her about his dick cancer. Then he had the temerity to claim,
I'm the leader of my own pack now.
All of this pissed Redmyer off to the point where she left for a couple of hours looking for another wolf boyfriend to call her own. Whisper rants to himself about Mostly Know-How.
I fucking hate this ferret that killed both of our families, but I love to have loved somebody that I always had as a friend before. He ruined my life, my way of living. I no longer feel that having a humongous dick is a good thing.
All the while, Whisper was confused for a few minutes, talking to himself about this entire time within the few days of the story about his dick cancer, saying this to himself.
All my life, I really thought I had a tiny penis growing up, and I always thought my big-ass dick was due to genetics. Wow, the genetics is only half true. It's mostly because of penile cancer.
Redmyer comes back still pissed, but not pissed enough to leave again. Then and only then, the argument begins with Redmyer going off on Whisper's white wolf ass.
First of all, the first 2 times we have sex, the conception doesn't work, but this time it does?
Whisper simply says,
It works this time? I thought it worked the first time. How the fuck do you know that now?
Redmyer clapped back with her response.
I can feel it, Whisper. I can feel the most ticklish part of you inside of me, you rotten bastard. That's how. Now, after the fact that you had me in suspense over the fact that you didn't tell me until now that you had dick cancer, and now you have the balls to feel sorry about how I felt being with you at all. Do you even remember the reason why we're together, Whisper? The reason why we're together is to destroy the absolute delusion of you being the leader of your own pack. Because you never motherfucking were, Whisper. And you know what, Whisper? I'm breaking up with you because I swear to God, if I give birth and die on the very same highway I was born on in 1974, you'll never be the father, and the new boyfriend I'll hook up with will never even be the stepfather because of you. And you know what, William Whisper Whillet? That's entirely fair. I only hate the fact that we won't be together forever and ever.
Whisper responds with his rage-induced rant.
You know what, Redmyer? You're goddamn motherfucking right about everything I know about you. You don't even begin to have any right to blame what will likely happen to you on me. You can't blame me for my dick cancer. It's not something I can control with my carnivore diet. You can't even blame yourself either. I eat plenty of vegetables every single fucking day, man. Because I understand you. And even after this breakup, I still love you, Redmyer. I was never the fucking leader of my own pack before I was born because our families murdered them and murdered the chance that I'll ever be. And even if I had the chance to be when I was born, they'd have no leader anyway. I didn't even begin to know that I had dick cancer until I went to the doctor's office this morning. Had to wait a few fucking hours for the hospital to even open because I felt like my dick was falling off the Empire State Building, for Christ's sake. I'm sorry that tickled you, bitch.
Redmyer apologizes for what she said about him, but the breakup still occurs. She silently left, but not without saying her last words to Whisper as they checked out of the hotel and hotel room. Whisper, I still love you too, but even you are too good for your own family. Whisper leaves, quietly walks out of the hotel, walks to his black car, and drives it to the hospital after calling about his dick cancer getting worse. Whisper's dick cancer is well beyond the faintest fucking chance for remission at this point. Whisper is now stuck in the emergency room, and that's where he'll stay until the day he dies in this story. Redmyer books another reservation at the same hotel, but in a different hotel room, in room 101, and with a different new boyfriend, Ken McCall the Grey Wolf. Chapter 12, Whisper Whillet's Untimely Death. About 3 weeks after the breakup, on June 5th, 1995, Whisper was found dead on the stretcher he had to sleep and eat food on. The nurse and doctor beforehand knew Redmyer and her phone number, so they call her while Redmyer was just waking up after a peaceful night's sleep with Ken. This all took place on June 26th, 1995. Redmyer picked up the phone, and the nurse was calling her saying this.
Redmyer, I hate to tell you this, but I have very sad news for you.
Redmyer kindly responds with,
Okay, please for the love of God, tell me.
The nurse tells her,
William Whisper Whillet is dead and died from stage 4 penile cancer. The last time we measured his penis length as he died, it was at a profound 15 inches long, and both his testicles were black and being the size of ostrich eggs, in my opinion.
Redmyer kindly acknowledges what the nurse told her, thanked her for giving the tragic news to her, and swiftly hangs up. She screams to herself,
Jesus fucking Christ, holy fucking shit!
All of a sudden, she was on the verge of shitting herself. She rushed herself to the bathroom and slammed the door. Ken was silent and baffled at what he heard the nurse told Redmyer. Ken went to get a can of 0-calorie beer. He kindly opens the can, takes sip after sip of his drink, and puts it down when it was empty. Ken suddenly wanted to take a shit, but Redmyer was in there shitting her ass out. Ken talks to himself softly.
My God, maybe this will be the opportunity for me to become the leader of the pack for now.
Redmyer, after she's done shitting, wiping her ass and flushing, puts her clothes on and starts to sob out loud for a few minutes. Ken, being a tender-hearted wolf, starts to cry and howls with Redmyer at the same time she started howling. They all cheered up, and Ken was glad that Redmyer was pregnant. The doctor, which turned out to be Ken's supposed father at work, goes off on a tirade about his supposed son to the nurse, and here's the best snippet of it.
Ken is the whiniest, most delusional wannabe daddy faggot the whole world has ever seen. He won't know it until it's too late, nurse. I swear. Because I adopted him. That's why.
Chapter 13, Life Lessons, Post-Death. 8.5 months later, Redmyer breaks up with Ken over being the leader of a 2-wolf pack. Tells him that he will not be the stepfather of the new white wolf baby, but she had no time to argue. Her water breaks, and she leaves Ken all alone to kill himself with his own double-barrel shotgun that was right under his side of the bed this whole time. Ken blows his brain out, but had the nerve to blow it while pulling the trigger twice. His death wasn't discovered until other people complained about the horrible smell coming from room 101 a day later. On February 27, 1996, Redmyer ran for 10 miles straight while her water broke and she was on the verge of giving birth. To find the perfect place in the forest to give birth all by herself with nobody by her side. All the while, the hotel management called the local crime scene cleaners to completely get rid of the biohazardous matter and completely clean up afterwards. Then once the crime scene cleaners got done cleaning the suicide mess Ken left behind himself in record time, the hotel employee got to making the new bed they had to replace the old one with on the same day Redmyer left. Redmyer then proceeded to crouch down, and as she did, the newborn white wolf came easily out of her vagina. Redmyer was so exhausted, while blood was easily pouring right out of her vagina, she couldn't even run. She was feeling progressively dizzier by the minute. Then after 10 minutes of desperately walking up to the very highway she was born on in 1974, she finally fully bleeds out and dies at the age of 22 years old. Right as she gave birth before she died, she named the newborn white wolf boy Timothy Whisper Whillet. The newborn doesn't even get to live for a week, as he died 5 days later after Redmyer passed away, on Sunday, March 3rd, 1996. Before her death, she expected the newborn to fend for himself, when he couldn't even breathe, even with the protective umbilical skin was removed by Redmyer herself. William Whisper Whillet, January 11th, 1966 to June 26th, 1995. died when he was at the age of 29 years old. Their families, each family member is accounted for, died at the age of between 6 years old at youngest and 79 years old at oldest. Died for the most retarded reason ever, because William Whisper Whillet existed and believed that he was the leader of his own pack before he was even born at all. What a waste of life all of them were. Now, here are the 7 life lessons. 1. Being the leader of the wolf pack is a fantasy and meaningless because either you weren't born first, or you're not your own father, which is the actual leader. 2. Living a lie can be just as costly, if not more so, than dying alone. 3. Spiritual siblings don't really exist in real life. 4. Newborn wolves, let alone newborns in general, can't even fend for themselves. 5. Life is short. Living a lie is shorter than you think. 6. God does not exist, he never existed, and he never will. And 7. This concludes the entire story within this audiobook before the conclusion. And now, we must conclude Chapter 13 and finally end this audiobook on a high note, shall we? Chapter 14. Finale/conclusion. So in summary, the total death toll of this story is 36 characters, including poor old Ken that shot himself in a hotel room. That also includes Mostly Know-How the ferret and the theater projectionist that worked at the Theater of the Lamb. Mostly Know-How kept his age anonymous, and so did the projectionist, so we don't really know their death ages. William Whisper Whillet died at the age of 29. Redmyer Restingham Riytz died at the age of 22. Ken Henry McCall, the Grey Wolf, died at the age of 19. Timothy Whisper Whillet died at the age of 5 days old. Here are the other 30 wolves and the age that they died at. Starting with Whisper's end of the bunch. Bulgy died at 6 years old. Prygart died at 7 years old. Moonhead died at 30 years old. Rippler died at 62 years old. Ballardy Whillet died at 77 years old. Olawa died at 42 years old. Brew Hadley died at 74 years old. Dicklet died at 23 years old. Dole Whillet died at 20 years old. Truth died at 79 years old. Lily died at 78 years old. Tigler died at 14 years old. Wendell Whillet died at the age of 16 years old. Yamalanaha Zumph Whillet died at the age of 19 years old. Queevy Doll Whillet died at 22. And Newman Whillet died at 40 years old. Now let's finish off with Redmyer's side of the bunch. Dicking died at the age of 66 years old. Grunge died at 70. Rubelee died at 50. Rubela died at 44. Alleyhart died at 27 years old. Roos died at 20 years old. Cusim Cumberland Riytz died at 17 years old. Marleesh Riytz died at 32 years old. Weggledly Riytz died at 29 years old. Hamothy Riytz died at 12 years old. Holm Riytz died at 9 years old. Yuliha Riytz died at 20 years old. Giyuth Fogel Riytz died at 21 years old, and Goth Riytz died at 50 years old. And that concludes the entire audiobook of The Curious Case of Whisper Whillet, Jack of All Packs, Leader of One, which was narrated, written, and published onto YouTube by Bryan Mullins. This has been a Bryan Mullins the Fox production/release. I am Bryan Mullins the Fox, signing out. Goodbye.